I'm Leroy Garcia, and this is Blue Rain Gallery Podcast. Today we're doing a walk along in the gallery with a very special guest, and Chris Pappan. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Chris has obviously been working hard the last many years of his life here, and we gave him a one-man show, and I can say from my perspective, I'm very impressed with the amount of work, and also the scale of some of these pieces are very beautiful. I don't know how he did this, but it's like he's drawing the same thing over and over and over and over in a scale. And so we'll let him describe some of these things, and also what he's trying to convey behind his artwork. So we're going to start with Where the Rivers Meet. So Chris, tell us a little bit about this piece and what inspired you about it. It seems like reflective of some of the other major pieces in here.
Yeah, so this piece was done specifically for a show in Chicago. And so the blue that you see in the piece, when it's arranged in a certain way, it mimics the shape of the Chicago River. It has a different branches. So, and the theme of the show was environment and climate change and that sort of thing. So I thought of the Chicago River as a victim of abuse, basically, and wanted to honor the river and bring people's attention to how man has abused and destroyed our environment for so long. Because the Chicago River has been reversed; it has been dumped in and polluted for hundreds of years, and but now people are working to change that, and it's still reversed, but there's animals and fish and things are coming back to it. So,
well, that's nice.
Yeah. It's not the same, but at least there's healing happening.
My reference to that is the St. Patrick's Day when they turn it green.
Yeah.
Stuff
that's
like
supposedly
that.
safe and vegetable dye, but yeah.
Okay, tell me how you came upon this. Now, you've done some mirrored pieces like this centerpiece before, but something that seems unique to me is the transcendent mirroring on both of these two end pieces.
Yeah, so that was inspired by another Native artist, Andrea Carlson, and looking at her work and just being amazed by what she's done. And, I was so inspired by it. But, instead of just like ripping people off like some people tend to do, I wanted to think about how could I incorporate that type of thing into my work. So, I love looking at the old photographs, and then I thought it would be really interesting to just kind of take the photograph and section it off and then repeat it and then see what kind of distortion happens. So, this is, the mirroring and bringing together, that's one kind of distortion. And so now this is like a new, different kind of distortion. And for the theme of the show that this was in, I'm thinking about environments and, the city that we live in. The grid pattern basically represents the city, and sectioning off our lives from other people and, living in our own little boxes.
I noticed on one of the paintings we'll get to, you left the grid lines on it, right?
Yeah.
On that. What's the scale difficulty of doing a mirror or this repetition format?
What is what?
What's the scale of difficulty in producing this? Did it challenge you?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's what I like about it too, is, challenging myself. Because, drawing little things on small scale paper is fine. But I'm that type of artist that likes to challenge myself a lot and, to grow and try new things.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say a lot of artists coming up to that are copy in repetition format until they find their voice. And in this place, you can find inspiration from other artists, but then still put your own voice on it.
Exactly.
And so that's important. I just wanted to point that out to our audience on that.
Yeah.
Well, let's walk over here to another significant piece. So this is titled Frequency, and it kind of has that reference to the other piece that we were talking about over there. Give us your description of this piece, Chris.
So I titled it Frequency based on the physical aspect of it, of drawing the same thing over and over again. But then also, then I thought about it more and how that title really references the feeling you get when you look at it, because it has this vibration, it gives off this frequency.
Yeah.
And I really like that combination of the actual physicality of it, and then the feeling of it as well.
So the native vesture on this imagery, what reference is that?
The
native, tribal reference.
Oh, so the person is an unnamed Sac and Fox leader. The Sac and Fox are originally from the Chicago area, northern Illinois area, but were moved to Indian country. And so this person was photographed after they were moved to Indian country. And where I got it from, the archive that I got it from, he wasn't named. So it made me really curious as to whether or not he chose to not be named, or there's so many like weird things that happen.
Well, there's a lot of photography that happened early in the last century where they didn't document things as best as they could.
Right.
They just taking pictures of native people and their regalia and stuff like that.
But the other gentleman in the other piece, he was named, and it's in the same archive.
What's his
name? Photograph, same photographer. His name is White Bear.
White Bear.
And he is Ponca. Yeah, Ponca.
Ponca.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's great references. I love the constellation points that you've put on your surrounding the vesture. It's a real beautiful piece.
And it was just great how it worked out too, because the stars really intersected with the figure, like almost exactly where I wanted it to.
Yeah, it came out perfect.
Yeah.
How does it feel when you hit a home run every now and then?
Oh yeah, it feels good.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about these pieces here, and before we get to another major piece, and let's just go down the line and tell us a little bit about each one of these pieces.
Yeah, so this one specifically was or is a reaction to a rematriation that happened for my people, for the Kanza
rematriation people. Meaning?
Rematriation meaning returning to the people, as opposed to repatriation. So those of you that are familiar with NAGPRA issues and things, repatriation is returning of objects to the people, usually ceremonial type things. Rematriation is more of a holistic returning of things, going back to the land, going back to the people. So they use it a lot when they talk about seed, seeds returning to people from seed banks, so seed rematriation. But this is what was rematriated to our people, was a very large stone monument, a stone rock that was revered, or is revered, by our people. And in the 1920s, it was taken from its home at the confluence of two rivers, again referencing rivers coming together, and was put in a park in Lawrence, Kansas. And they knew that it was sacred to us, and that's why they took it. And then they put a bronze plaque on this rock, like carved out a perfect square to fit in this plaque, honoring the pioneers that settled in Lawrence.
So where's this rock at now?
So this rock has been rematriated. It is now on Kanza land in Kansas. And there's now work going around, like building an interpretive site and that sort of thing. So it's on ceremonial ground now.
So also reference amongst the Pueblo tribes, they were originally matriarchal societies, right? Is that the same case for the Plains?
Not always. I think for the Kanza people, there's specific roles in various things. So just as there are in Pueblos,
right?
But yeah, so this is so the rectangle kind of references that rectangle that was carved out of the rock, and then nice. the bronze, the patinaed bronze color behind there, and then the little orange loops reference the crane that was lifting the rock up from its place. And then cranes like these were actually used to move the rock from its home and put into place. So, so there were old cranes and new cranes.
I've also noticed lately you've been adding a lot of thread and things like that. Is that the reference across the board, or there's a different reference per each piece?
that one was more specific. For these other ones, it's a little more decorative, but then it also brings a more sense of movement to the work as well.
Yeah.
Historically in ledger art, there's always, for the most part, movement happening, like horses running, people fighting, moving, doing that sort of thing. So I'm working from all these static portraits and want to incorporate more movement.
A little kinetic.
So
energy.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it also adds another great texture as well.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. That's a great innovative thought. So you've done a lot of these nudes before, and I know we've kind of talked about this, but go into detail a little bit about this style of painting, because it's referenced in your career throughout, right?
Yeah. So for me, it's more of a reference of a deeper knowledge and kind of casting off Euro-Christian ideologies and, just being more focused on humanity, on our humanity. And that's where it stems from. And then, and then it can branch out into any other positive or negative aspects that you want to put into it. But, because hearing these stories about Buffalo Woman bringing gifts to the people and Dear Woman being this trickster or a cautionary tale figure, it's, there's these stories that go beyond our Christian influences now and stuff.
Yeah.
So
you kind of have to explore and get back into figuring out what really happened before Western's expansion.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh? All right. And this is along the same lines. And I love these skateboard paintings. We have two of them here in the Sovereign 1 and 3, right?
Yeah. I missed number 2, but
oh, yeah. Where is number 2? Anyways,
number 2.
give us what your concept is behind thought on this.
So it's kind of the same idea as these, but just putting them in more contemporary contexts, and thinking about the proliferation of skateboarding in Indian communities and the importance it has. It's such a positive influence for young people and old people too, because it brings the community together. And then I was thinking about it, and then that to me, that it's really a ceremony. That these skate happenings are basically a ceremony.
The first time that I've ever had an experience with that was I think Douglas Miles produced a show on skateboards, right?
And
that's
he's a
like
huge influence, right? He was
Douglas.
really,
I think he's based out of Phoenix, Arizona.
Globe,
Arizona. Another fantastic artist if you want to look him up. So we'd like to ask Chris to describe more about his reference of using historical photographs and for inspiration, which we kind of a little bit covered lightly. But how important is that to you?
To me, that's a very physical way of connecting with our ancestors. Mm-hmm. For me, that I didn't grow up on the reservation or attend ceremonies, so this is my way of connecting. And in the end, it's actually brought me back to my community. So that's the importance of it. And the title of the show, The Motion of Breathing, came from when I was looking at the photograph of the Ponca gentleman, White Bear, and the resolution was so clear. And old photography, the folks had to sit very still, or else it would be blurry. But of course, you have to keep breathing, right? So when I was looking at this photograph, I was sectioning it off. Looking very closely at the grid, and exactly where he was wearing a piece medal, and where his piece medal was, it was blurry. And so that's the motion of his breathing that you could physically
it's
see.
rhythmic.
Yeah. And it's just, it's very subtle. You don't notice it right away. And so, I thought that that the way that the photograph looked, that repetition of the blurriness kind of reflected repetition that I have in the
Yeah.
pieces as well.
I think that's really innovative. It's really beautiful.
And
It
then-
might be a pain in the, you know what, to make.
Oh,
but-
yeah. No, it's, the devil's in the details, and it's not worth doing if it's not hard. So
If you look at this, like just because it's like a grid, right? You're coming down the line, redrawing the same piece on the grid,
mhm.
and maybe in
Oh,
larger formats.
yes,
from a
yeah, so-
smaller scale to a larger.
So each section is repeated 4 times.
Mhm.
So yeah, so if you look at one part, you'll see it, in 4.
Yeah.
So that that's kind of referencing the star shapes that are on
Right.
it as well.
Yeah.
But then when it all kind of when it meets in these different areas, it fills in. And
I even like the use of the red and the yellow on the stars.
yes, and then so
'Cause it's graduated.
and I wanted to do that to kind of highlight like the circular void that's kind of in between the figures.
Very nice. Let's go to this other major piece over here. So this is another major piece from Chris. It's titled Divinity, and it follows the essence of the other major paintings in the show, and it has reference to some of the other things we were just talking about. What was your inspiration behind this?
The main inspiration was just kind of taking all of those things and bringing it all together into one large piece. And then it also references a specific moment in that Buffalo woman story of her bringing the pipe to the people and how she transformed from the buffalo into a woman. And this is representing like that actual moment of transformation. And then as far as the color of the buffalo, I just chose red because I was thinking about the color
red, blue,
scheme.
yellow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
They're beautiful. If you get a chance, come and see these paintings. They're very beautiful. Chris put a lot of time and effort into these works. Took him a long time to do this, and it's one of the larger bodies of work we've ever had from him. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you for spending time with us today and talking about your work. I'd like to thank everybody for listening to our podcast today. You can subscribe to us on any of the platforms out there. You can go to also blueraingallery.com under the menu bar podcast and check them out as well. Also, I'd like to encourage you to bring art into your everyday life by visiting our online store, bluerainprintshop.com. Thank you.